Welcome, I'm Elise,
And I'm Jess, and this is Spiritual Alchemy,
the podcast where we explore the intersection of science and spirituality.
and how it shapes our everyday lives.
Hi, Jess.
Hey, Elise.
We're back.
We are back again. How are you doing today?
I'm good. It's it's busy. It's just busy,
Yeah.
but not in a bad way. In a very exciting, I feel like I can finally handle it way.
Yeah, I feel the same. I feel like I'm very busy and like life has really picked up in the last month, and I think I was just sharing with you that my goal this week is to kind of really find a little bit more routine, more structure so that I'm showing up the way I need to at work, showing up the way I need to for us, and then also showing up for myself the way that I need to, and finding balance in like social activity, keeping my schedule straight, making sure I get all,
You
cross all my
sound like a
T's, dot all
juggler.
my I's.
I'm
Yeah.
hearing dun 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 dun
And
dun
that
dun.
is literally what my schedule, when you open my calendar app on my phone, that's actually the sound that plays. It's crazy. But yeah,
Same.
so finding rhythm in the chaos.
I love that. And perfectly leading us to our topic of the day,
Mm.
which is facing your shadows
Um,
or facing the shadows. They can be yours
yeah.
and they can be all around you.
Shadows are the darker parts of your soul that you maybe repress or aren't at peace with, or were told when you were younger that that's wrong, you can't feel that way, you shouldn't do this. And I think that shadow work and trauma are very tied in together. They're very connected, and it's not you can have one and not the other, or you can't have one without the other, but sometimes they play into each other. Like a traumatic event happens, and then shadows ripple out from that event and then prevent you from becoming your best and most authentic self.
I had a therapist say to me once that trauma is the initial wound,
Mm,
and then the shadows or the darkness or the belief system that you inherently take on after that trauma is the shadow. It
yes.
becomes the scar.
Yeah.
And like anybody who's ever gotten hurt and has a scar, I got scars all over my hands because I've been cutting my hands a lot
Yeah.
recently. They don't just go away. Your skin's a little discolored. If you want them to go away, you have to massage them with particular
Hmm.
lotion or, keep them out of the sun. It
Yeah.
takes a lot to heal your scars.
Yeah. Yeah. I 100% agree with that. That it's like the event or the initial kind of pinprick, and then the shadow is just what the pattern that follows in the wake of that.
Hmm.
We kind of talked about ripple effect a few episodes ago. Shadows can have a ripple effect too.
That's what I meant at the beginning when I said it's your shadows, but it's also everyone else's shadows.
Hmm.
It's understanding that you are one part of a whole.
Yeah. And also, we go back to mirrors as well. Sometimes when you have similar shadows, and I would call this kind of like trauma bonding, either reflecting, you can either be triggered by someone who reflects your shadows back to you, or that person who's maybe had a similar traumatic event can help heal you,
Hmm.
because then you realize you're not in the dark alone.
And I think we touched upon that in the soul connections. You can trauma bond with people for better or for worse.
Yeah.
There's no saying what it's going to be.
Yeah.
That we will be talking about some heavy topics today. I'll let
Mm.
Jess give more of a trigger warning, but we're going to be talking about our personal shadows that we've had. So maybe people can relate to it
Mhm.
or, take your own spin on the story. But I will ask you just forthright, what has been the darkest shadow that you've had to face so far?
I can already feel like the weight in my chest when I think about it. Um, I had to deal with a really traumatic childhood event, um, and have been working on this for like the last couple years of working through this because it was the kind of event where it happened and then I pretended like everything was fine. And I was like, I'll just get over it. It'll be fine. It'll be okay. And as the years went by, it wasn't okay. And the feeling kept getting worse and growing and growing and growing. And I finally just got to a point where I was like, I'm sick of feeling like this. I need to confront this and I need to heal it. And this kind of childhood trauma, I worked with a therapist, but I also combined therapy with my spiritual practice to like therapy gave me the tools to recognize the facts of the event, understand what happened, understand the logistics, understand it wasn't my fault, understand that I'm valid in how I feel now about it as an adult.
Hmm.
I also received some tools on how to deal with any sort of like panic attacks or things that would arise when I would have to confront the situation because I was also getting like PTSD triggers at the time that I really had to start dealing with this, and it was like preventing me from living life. Um, so when these triggers would happen, she gave me tools to help calm myself down. But with my spiritual practice, spirituality gave me the space to go in and sew the wound up.
Mm.
So there's a method in like a spiritual practice where you kind of like go back to that key moment, and it's this idea that the past, the present, and the future are all happening at the same time. So just as much as you can like manifest by visualizing your future and calling that future version of yourself towards yourself, you can also go back to past moments, reframe or like rewrite the narrative
And even protect. That's one of my favorite too, is
and
like
protect.
send adult you back to little you.
So that's exactly what I was
Mm.
doing, is that in meditation, I would go back to this key moment, this moment where I was scared, I was alone, I did not feel protected, I did not feel like anybody was there for me. And it was such a heavy burden because I couldn't, I mean, like at the time I was so young and like I couldn't tell anybody because I didn't know what to do.
Hmm.
And having to like go back to that space, go back to that moment and like essentially relive it, but relive it as older adult me with younger me and me stepping in as myself to go in and protect the way that I wasn't protected, to shield and to comfort and to say, hey, it's okay. Like, I got you.
Yeah.
And I didn't just do that once. I had to continuously go back and go back and go back and go back until I essentially, like, to kind of paraphrase it, like, essentially like, took my power back or like made myself feel safe again.
I mean,
And
unfortunately, I don't have the research on this in front of me, but I do know that psychologists have proven that if you revisit a memory through hypnosis, through therapy, you can actually rewrite memories, which is scary in itself. But if we take that and think about what you've done, is you've reframed the memory
mm,
so that you are in control.
less that I was not in control, less that I wasn't alone.
No, you weren't alone. You were with you.
Yeah.
That's a simple but big
It is,
statement. You were with you.
you were with you. And I think it's a hard concept for people to grasp because I mean, it's a hard thing to do, but you really have to like, it's more about forgiving yourself
Hmm.
than anything. It wasn't my fault what happened. I was just there. And like I always say, everything happens for you. And I do believe that. I think that this was something that did happen to me. And then the shadows of the patterns have happened to help me heal from that.
Well, I mean, even to bring it back, if people have been listening in order, we have not been friends for a very long time. You started your spiritual journey, I would almost say like a decade
Yeah.
before I started mine. And I think those people that lead in spirituality and self-healing unfortunately have to go through a lot of shit early. And is there a better way to say that?
No, I think that makes perfect sense. I
Okay.
mean, listen, that resonates for
Okay, because I don't
me.
want to be calling anybody out and telling anybody how they feel, but you went through a lot of shit early. And so you stepped into this self love, self care practice so much earlier than me.
Yeah.
And I also went through shit, but I didn't slow down or life didn't smack me up and down until like my mid 20s.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I'm not well.
Yeah.
And when life is spinning so fast, it's like I don't even know how to stop. I don't even know how to begin. And then of course COVID happened. So like the world did it for me. But I think I often think like if COVID had never happened, we would not be sitting here
No.
because I don't think I ever would have stopped. I would have just kept running and running and running and running because I'm a runner.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that there's a lot of truth to that because I think that, yes, I started my journey so early, but even when I was starting my journey, I was so baby. Like I was like taking in all this information and like seeing it apply to my life in real time, but I was also like, if 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 22-year-old Jess was sitting here right now, her perspective on the world was still not fully developed. Like, I had gone through a lot and I had a lot of wisdom at that age. But then at 24, I was even wiser. And then at 26, I was even wiser from
Well,
experience and from going through more shit and going through more. And like, I
mm,
finally feel like now in my 30s, I am like finally at a point where I'm like, the lessons have gotten way less intense. But because I've gone through so much to build back my self love, and like I will say this wound I'm talking about is probably like one of the very last big wounds that I need to heal. And I have done a lot of work to heal it. And I have like really done my best. There's still a lot of work to be done, but that's that's the beauty of it is like the way I approach this is so like I know what to do.
it's kind of like think about your brain like a house, right?
Mm.
It doesn't matter how well you clean your house, how, you know, you can wax the floors and dust till you're sweating. But if you live in your house, which you live in your mind, it's going to get dirty.
Yeah.
It's going to get some dust on it. You're going to have to constantly do maintenance. You're going to have to constantly, window wash
Yeah.
and do your dishes. And that's how I like to think about like my own brain, right?
Yeah.
It's constant maintenance. It's never, I'm good now.
Yeah.
I'm going to graduate from therapy. I had a shrink say that to me once. They're like, we're going to try and get you through this program. I'm like, huh?
No.
You want to graduate from therapy?
I'm like, we got layers to work through,
It's like,
babe.
what in what world?
Yeah.
I was like, great, didn't know that was possible, but sure, let's try. Didn't work.
Well, speaking of your house cleaning and your mental house cleaning, what is your deepest shadow that you faced?
So I'm a performer, as many people know, and I latched on to music at a young age. One, because it kept me safe.
Mm-hmm.
Two, it was just it was something that I had to always work really hard towards. I was always creative. I would, dance came easy, school came easy. Music, I had to work for music, and there was such personal satisfaction when I got it. And I knew I was always meant to be an artist. I was not supported in that. That is not should not any family member listening to that is a tall tale story that I wasn't allowed. I was always very artistically and musically inclined, and I wasn't allowed to go into it. And then what did I do? I did it anyway.
Okay.
But just because I chose to do it and go against everybody else's wishes didn't mean that I had a clear voice in my head being like, yeah, you can do this. It was this idea that I was only useful if I was perfect, that I was
Mm.
only needed if I was perfect, that I was only desirable if I was perfect.
Mhm.
And then what did I choose? I chose classical music. Which is just
What
like,
is closer to perfection
which
then?
I don't know how you could get any more close to perfection. Like the world that I'm in, they are listening for perfection
Mhm.
and artistic expression. And I found that it was very difficult to find that artistic expression when you're trying so hard to be perfect. You're stifled.
Mhm.
Your voice is gone. And I had vocal damage and I lost my voice. My trauma caught up to me. And I would not wish this on my worst enemy because being told, hey, you've got vocal damage, you can't sing for 10 months. My whole identity, everything that I had fought for since I was 18, I defied my family's orders. I moved to New York City. I was doing everything that I wasn't supposed to do. And then I lost my voice. And you know what someone said to me? Well, Julie Andrews lost her voice. Adele lost her voice. They had vocal damage. I'm like, my career hadn't even started.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm no Julie Andrews. I'm no Adele.
Yeah.
I'm Elise. I am one of millions of people in this city, and my dream hasn't even been lifted off the ground yet. And now I got to fight through this too.
Yeah.
So this pattern of chasing or trying to attain perfection
Mhm.
destroyed me
Mhm.
to the point where you can't you can't fix something that's really broken, and my voice was broken, and the only thing that was going to help it was time, which, as I said before, about 10 minutes ago, I didn't know how to stop.
Mhm.
I ran and ran and ran and ran. And even with the vocal damage, what did I run to? Got an arts admin job. I could still be close to the arts, couldn't sing, sat behind a desk, made other people's dreams come true, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
So, through then finding singing again and stopping during COVID, I meditated, I journaled, I embodied these practices of self care. And it still happens sometimes. I stopped letting the vocal damage be the reason that it held me back.
Mhm. Yeah. I think that it's like you break free from it because it does kind of become like this thing, right? Like this monstrous ball and chain that you're just dragging. And it's like, hey, you can let go.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can let go of that. You don't have to carry that with you. And when you start unpacking all of the things that led you to believe
Yeah.
why you need to hold on, it's like, hey, just
It's
and it's
a
not as simple as like just let go. It's
but
like
it's a balance of remembering and then forgetting, remembering then forgetting.
mhm,
And I'm a huge advocate for mental health and for talk therapy.
mhm,
Gosh, the year, 2 years after that happened, that's pretty much all I could talk about.
yeah,
I just wanted to talk about my vocal damage and what it mentally did to me. It doesn't come up as often as much,
yeah,
but I teach voice, and because of this trauma that I had, I have a deep well of knowledge and understanding the voice and understanding that even what we're doing right now, it's an expression of who we are. Your voice is you.
mhm,
And like it's meta, but it's very simple. Your voice is you. So whenever I meet somebody who comes to me and they're like, I can't sing that. I shouldn't sing that. I go, what voice is that?
mm,
What voice is that? Because do you want to sing it?
yeah,
I'm here to help you do that. Let's do it.
yeah,
So it's acknowledging that voice, giving it a name,
mhm.
facing it, and then letting the story tell itself.
It's so funny too when because I'm a big believer of like chakra health, right? Like throat chakra. Whenever I'm around somebody who's like, "Oh, my voice just, I lost my voice. I don't know what happened." I'm like, "What are you not saying? What are you holding in? Because your throat's getting, that chakra's getting clogged. And if you don't speak your truth, if you don't say your opinion, like I you'll get chronic throat infections, you'll get chronic voice loss.
Yeah.
Like when it's a pattern, like occasional voice
No,
loss is
that
not the mean, like, oh, every time you lose your voice you're not saying what you mean. It's just when it's a pattern,
no,
like,
that was 100% what happened. I mean, the timeline of my vocal damage was took me 6 years to finish undergrad. It
mhm,
was very hard. I was living in New York. I was in a relationship that I shouldn't have been in.
mhm,
My parents were going through a divorce after almost 30 years of marriage.
mhm.
I just kind of stepped into the world as a young adult and I was so lost.
Yeah.
And instead of saying, "Hey, I need help. I'm drowning," I stuffed it all in.
Yeah.
And then what did the universe said? They said, "Bitch, sit down."
Mhm.
Whenever someone gets sick like that or hurt like that, I go, "I think you need to rest." And then
Mhm.
people fight with me and I go, "No, no, I'm saying this from a place of understanding. You need to just rest. You need to just rest. The universe is saying, bitch, sit down and
Mhm.
just be."
Just be. Love that.
Mm-hmm.
So, spiritually, how do we define shadow work?
Oh gosh. I think it starts with awareness
Mhm.
and either I've said this before, practicing living very presently,
Mhm.
and it's a practice to have something triggering, traumatic, uncomfortable conflict happen and to be in it and observe it, but not get reactive to it. It's that unconscious pain. And you
Yeah.
wrote that. And I think it's so, so true about bringing the repressed emotions
Yeah.
to the surface. So maybe stuff from the past,
Mhm.
but then also learning to live really presently
Mhm.
and being like, how do I make sure I don't stuff this down?
Yeah.
How can I live so presently that I am not going to let this become unconscious? I'm going to make it conscious and I'm going to think about it right now.
It's very much like releasing your limitations. It's very focused on personal growth, like growing as a person. It's very focused on the darker parts of yourself that you've rejected.
Mm,
And it's like you're opening yourself up to more self-awareness, you're opening yourself up to a greater version of yourself because you're releasing everything that's holding you back from becoming your true authentic self.
mhm. I was talking about fear the other night with some friends, and I was in an altered state, and I said, "I don't get scared anymore." And they looked at me. They're like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "I don't. I'm like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, I get excited for
Mhm.
things that used to bring me so much fear
Yeah.
when I perform.
Mhm.
Now, I used to fear not being perfect so much. And that used to be the voice at the forefront of my brain that I would shake.
Ooh.
And I never knew what part would shake. Sometimes it was my hands, sometimes it was my knees, sometimes it was one leg would shake. And then I found breath work and meditation.
Mhm.
And now it's just like adrenaline butterflies. And it's this excitement of it's live theater.
Yeah.
Anything could happen. Let's go out and see.
Yeah.
And it's so much more fun that way, I would say. Embracing the unknown. Like live performers, if you know anybody who's a live performer, go give them a hug. We're doing the impossible every day.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of improv your life, but then imagine going out on a stage and having to recite lines or sing songs or personify a character that they're, trying to embody. It is chaos,
Yeah.
but man, is it a fun exercise.
Oh yeah.
Everyone should do theater, I think. Live theater, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah. I did live theater. I
Yeah,
mean, I was a
exactly.
dancer, so yeah,
She knows.
I get it. My guy, Carl Jung, my favorite Swiss psychologist, all of our favorite Swiss psychologists,
Mm-hmm.
define the shadow as the unconscious parts of our psyche, including repressed feelings and desires that don't align with our conscious values. So think about, I love this example of someone who grew up in a very strict religious household. Think about that.
Okay.
And certain views that were put on them of you're not allowed to feel this. I'm going to use like a classic example because I think that this is a lot of trauma that women have had to come over is that women in a lot of religions are expected to remain virgins until they're married. And if they don't, they're ruined and they're damaged goods. And how do you navigate this feeling of I'm a bad person if
Mm.
I have desire, if I have, if I love someone and I want to be intimate with them, like how do I balance that with my belief if that's my belief in my faith? There's no room. It's like, nope, you're a bad person, you're going to hell, and you can never get that back. This limiting constraint of like, if you do this, you're a bad person, but there's no room for us to have a discussion of how to do this safely. And it should be about safe, like instead of like a don't do this, because now that repressed feeling is going to fester within that person's soul space.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to continually think, oh, I'm a bad person for feeling that way. I'm a bad person for having desires. I'm a bad person for wanting to be wanted. I'm a bad person for wanting to love someone. It's just expression. Like you don't express yourself. Or like, I mean, we could even think about like what it means to be a queer person
Mm-hmm.
in certain religions. It is not allowed.
Mm-hmm.
And some religions are so strict that like kids who have come out to their parents or people who have come out to their parents who are religious, their parents have rejected them and been like, well, not anymore. And we're in 2025 and this still happens.
Mm-hmm.
Or I have talked to people who are queer who are like, I can never, like my parents live somewhere else. I can never tell them about my partner. I can never tell them about the love in my life because they will reject it. And they've had to overcome these feelings of self-hatred because
It's nothing they did to deserve that. If anything, I would look at the parents and say, what is so embedded in your subconscious that you can't open your mind up
you had
to
brought up,
love, which
yeah,
is the highest vibration we can get to. You love your child and this child loves this person. What does it matter?
yeah,
Truly, what does it matter?
yeah. Love
Ain't
is love is love.
ain't no God judging that. I can promise you that. So all this work is about bringing lightness or bringing light to the darkest parts of yourself. And dare I say that spiritually, shadow work is alchemy, like
Mm-hmm.
alchemy, and transforming the heaviness or the lead inside of you into gold. Countless, bountiful amounts of gold that live inside of us. But it takes time, it takes pressure,
Yeah.
and it takes constant maintenance.
Mm-hmm. I think that, or I guess what I'll ask you is shadow work and trauma work the same thing?
No, no. Trauma is the wound, shadow work is the scar. Say that again. Trauma is the wound, shadow work is the scar.
Mm-hmm.
So to deal with your trauma, we, for example, what you were sharing, you got to go right back. You got to pinpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And then after you pinpoint, you can then follow the pattern. You can follow the puzzle
Mm-hmm.
pieces essentially. And that is your shadow work.
So to kind of use your wound analogy, when you find, like, let's say we have a trauma, the trauma is the cut.
Mm-hmm.
The shadow work is first. What do you have to do to a wound?
You have to feel the pain.
Yeah.
You got to feel the pain. It can't just be, oh shit, I'm bleeding.
Get me the rubbing
It, it,
alcohol.
it needs to be, oh shit, I'm bleeding. This really hurts. Ow, 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 ow.
Acknowledge.
Then the next step is you got to clean it.
Yes. So I love that. Acknowledge the pain. Acknowledge the pain. Then we have to go in. We got to clean it. We got to clean it good.
Which is probably going to hurt more than the initial pain.
Yeah. And we have to assess the damage. How are we going to heal this? Is it a quick Band-Aid. We need a little, antibiotic ointment, put a little Band-Aid on it, we're good. And the scar will heal, and it needs time to scab over. Do we need to go in and sew the wound up?
You need to go to a doctor and get a tetanus shot,
Do you need to go get do you need outside help?
Yeah.
So I think that, yes, time heals wounds, but so does doing the work. You can't just ignore your pain and just hope it goes away, because then you get an infection. And what happens to the infection?
Festers.
It festers.
And it grows.
And it gets worse.
I mean, disclaimer, I am no psychologist. I am no doctor. I have had...
What?
Oh, the musician. But I've had a slew of health issues. I have a theory that when the body keeps the score, very good book, that if you don't deal with your pain, it's going to lodge itself somewhere. And if energy is all around us and energy is accessible all the time, the only tangible physical thing that our pain has to latch onto is our bodies. You don't deal with it, it is going to come out.
I will use the example of when many years ago, I was in a relationship. And it's funny to me because I actually see this pattern repeated in other people as well. I was in this relationship, and towards the end, I was getting so sick all the time. I was sleeping all the time. I was exhausted. I was emotionally drained. I was having a lot of gut issues, and I was violently ill. And my body was rejecting this relationship. I was sick because things were going really badly. And my body was trying to tell me, like, hey, this isn't right. You need to get out of this. And fortunately, I was able to, but I will never forget like that instance. And now sometimes when I see like couples who've been together for a long time, and then somebody is dealing with chronic health issues, I'm like, ooh, is that a reflection on the health of the relationship? And then sometimes they break up like shortly after one person is dealing with an illness. And like, not to say that's always related, but like,
I don't know anything about anything, but I like patterns. I'm a musician.
Yep.
All I like is patterns.
Yep.
That's all music is. And I like looking at patterns in people. And I got to tell you, sometimes there's a pattern once you start looking.
Yeah. I think there is so much here. So much to dive. I mean, this is deep, deep, heavy work. So I think we're going to pause here for today. We'll let you all absorb what we've talked about so far. And next week, we'll pick up with, how do we even begin to do this work? How do we begin to face the shadows?
Yeah. Everyone, these are your journal prompts. What part of yourself or myself have I been hiding, denying, or only allowing to be seen when it feels acceptable or performative? How have past wounds, emotional, physical, or spiritual, shaped the way I view my worth or my voice in the world? Jess, you want to give us our last one?
What might healing look like if I allowed myself to express, create, or speak simply for me, not for validation?
We'll catch you next time.
Have a good one.
Thanks for joining us today. We're so glad you were here. For more information on our episodes and to connect with us on social media, follow us at Spiritual Alchemy Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Stay golden!